Welcome back to my channel. I'm finally back after about 9 months. Um, Basically what happened was I ended up getting real bad sick. Those who know me personally know what happened. I won't go into too much detail, but let's just say it was pretty severe. Took a little while to get over it. Just kind of getting everything back together. But I'm back and I finally wanted to do another video. I know last time I had promised to do a Kolchak video, but being down and out for so long, I ended up watching a lot of anime and some stuff that I would have never given a second thought to before. But yeah, these are 10 anime that really surprised me. And just to give you guys a heads up, there probably will be some spoilers ahead. So if I come across a title that you're interested in seeing and you don't want to read it, don't want to see any kind of spoiler, just skip past it. Just want to give a heads up that all images, names, and so forth are used for review purposes only. I do not own the rights to any of these properties. They are all owned by their respective owners. And let's jump right into 10 anime that really surprised me. And by that I mean they're anime that I watched that I didn't really have any expectations into going into it for most of them, and you'll know why here in just a minute. And but I was surprised that I actually ended up liking a lot of them. So let's go ahead and start off with number 10. And at number 10, we have Shuffle. Now, Shuffle is a harem anime based on a visual novel game series. Now, anybody my age knows that anime based off games is usually really bad. But it's kind of interesting since it's not like a typical game that they would have do an anime on. It's not action, it's not fighting. It's literally a harem, like slice of life school anime. Only had one season, 24 episodes. Um, and a lot of this, you have your typical harem characters, and which, by the way, harem is something you're going to hear a lot of during this video because it's not a genre that I typically would have watched before. Like, for example, probably the most famous harem anime in America is the Tenchi series, and I never once watched it. Was never interested, didn't really care about it. But when you're sitting around looking for something to watch, sometimes you just watch random things for no real reason, and there's not really any explanation for it. But it actually turned out to be not too bad. This is a world where you find out that devils and gods exist, and they decided to come to Earth. So you have and it's all given an exposition in the very first episode. For example, you have at the high school that our male lead Ren goes to has kids who are kids of the gods and kids of the devils in it. As long as our other main characters, you have K-Day, who is his best friend and his roommate. Asia, who is just a longtime friend of his. Lysanathus, who is the princess of the gods. Naren, who's the princess of the devils. You have Primula, who is like the little sister character for our male lead. I'm not really going to go into too much detail about what she is, but let's just say at one point the anime tries to be a lot smarter than what it is. And yeah, it took a weird turn for no real reason. But anyway, then you have Forbasai, who's the king of the devils, and Eustoma, who's the king of the gods. One thing I liked about this is, like I said, it's not 100% your typical harem anime. Not a whole lot of fan service and stuff goes on. There is a little bit, of course. It is harem anime after all. One of the things I do like about it is there is, and like a lot of these that you'll see, that there's a couple moments in it that really kind of just shine for the whole series. One of them being, and like I said at the last slide, spoilers ahead, K-Day, who is his best friend and roomie, is, okay, of course, in love with him. And the one thing I like about this show is they actually have the male lead character actually choose somebody and stick with that choice. and he chooses Asia, which is really kind of surprised me because leading up to that point, there wasn't I mean, you could tell that she liked him, but there really wasn't a whole lot going on that made it seem like, oh, I'm going to choose her as my girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like, it was just kind of weird. But Kada, at one point, because she's so desperate for Ren's affection, to make up for the fact that when they were kids, she just treated him like garbage, because basically what had happened was their parents got into a car accident together where Ren's mother and father both died, and Kayde's mother died, which is why Ren lives with her and her father. That's why they're roommates. And when they were little kids, she blamed him for that and literally treated him like garbage, like actively tried to hurt him and stuff. And he basically just kind of put up with it because he thought it was best for her to just kind of deal with it how she wanted to, and he felt that it was okay for him or her to blame him for it. But at one point, like I said, he chooses Asia, and Kayde literally snaps, and the emotion you get from this scene when she literally tells her that she wishes she would just die, like, it's absolutely insane. And yeah, like that moment and example is like a perfect example of like a really shining, like, emotional moment for the show. So, but let's go ahead and move on to the next one, shall we? Number 9. We have My Girlfriend is Show Bitch. Now, I know what you're thinking. Like, what's up with that title? Well, I'm not going to try to pronounce the actual title, but from what I read, the actual Japanese title translates loosely into My Girlfriend is like, I believe it's something along the lines of My Girlfriend is a little slut. And they basically made it to where it's My Girlfriend is a bitch. And I don't really understand that, which we'll get to in just a second. But it was just a single season anime, 10 episodes. They had one OVA that was kind of interesting because at the end of every episode, they have like a dialogue of the two main characters talking, and the OVA is literally the animated version of the dialogue that they're doing. But you get your main characters. You got Haruka, who's our male lead. Akio, I think it's pronounced Akio, as our female lead. You got Shizuku, who is the male lead's best friend, who's also a girl. Kaneda, who is his actual little sister. Seiyo, and I put on here that she's a peeper, and that's literally what it is. She likes peeping at people and being weird. You got Fuyumi, who is the female lead's mother, and Natsuo, who is the female lead's father. They're also actually really funny, but the thing I liked about the show is it was the male lead is not your typical pervert, and honestly, like in the last one, Shuffle, he wasn't either. But this one, he's your typical shy school kid who has admired this girl Akio for a while and finally gets up the courage to ask her out, and she says yeah. They end up going out, and but what makes the show funny is it's literally non-stop sex jokes. Now, typically that would get old, but I don't know why I found it so funny. Like, every episode, she keeps trying to do things to quote unquote be the perfect girlfriend, and it just ends up being weird. Like, they make, innuendos to like water sports, for example, and for you of those listening who don't know what that is, I'm not going to go into what it is, but you should know what it is. Um, and it just goes on like that. Like, at one point, he falls and she puts her boot on him and starts talking down to him, thinking that he liked it and that he was a masochist and all this other stuff. And it was just really funny. And then you got Shizuku, who constantly makes innuendo towards him, but whenever anything accidentally happens or whatever, she gets like real shy and like shies away from it. And then you got Kaneda, his little sister, who actually treats him like a brother. Like, she's not actually in love with him. Thank God it's not that kind of anime. But she does make a lot of innuendo because you can tell that it makes him uncomfortable. And you can tell it's for that purpose. Like, she's just teasing him because she knows it makes him uncomfortable. And it's also really funny. So check it out sometime. Like I said, it's actually really funny. I literally laughed out loud at some of these parts. So yeah, on the number 8. My first girlfriend is a gal. And I know what you're thinking. That title is very stupid. And you would be right. It is very stupid. And, well, for starters, one season, 10 episodes, one OVA. Typical stuff. You got the male lead, Junichi, female lead, Yukana. You got Nene, who is, of course, the small, child-looking one who's the same age as the male lead, who's his longtime friend who loves him. You got Ranko, who is the best friend of Junichi, who's also jealous that they get together. And you got Yui, who she's the other popular girl in class, but she feels like that everybody should pay attention to her, and that's why she enters the fold, because Junichi starts paying attention to Yukana instead of her, and she doesn't feel like that's how that should happen. And then you get Junichi's 3 friends, Shinpei, Minoru, and Keigo. Now, for the most part, they're really just comic relief. They try to give him advice on what to do about girls and stuff, but as much as I hate to use the overused word cringy, Minoru is super, super cringy. He's obsessed with lolly characters, but like in real life. Yeah. It's really creepy, and it borderline, it almost ruined the anime for me. I'm not gonna lie, like, because he talks about little kids, but the thing that makes the thing that kind of redeems it is the fact that all his friends know that it's wrong, and they tell him how wrong it is, and they make jokes like, "Oh, I can't wait to visit you in prison," and things like that, or "You should get used to talking to adults since you'll have to introduce yourself to the whole neighborhood in the future." Like, you know what I mean? Like, they know it's not good for him, but this anime is also a little different than your typical harem anime. I would say so, at least. Um, well, basically what happens is his 3 friends send a note to Yukana to meet him, Junichi, after school. And so they superimpose him to meet up with her. So he does. And basically it kind of goes how he thought it would go at first. Like, she kind of teases him and basically kind of feels bad for him, but then it's weird. Like, she thought the fact that he was kind of pathetic really cute, so she decides to go out with him. And yeah, and it goes on from there. And the other thing is, he's a little bit more of a creeper than our couple previous male leads. Like, the whole point of this was he wants to lose his virginity, but it's kind of weird because they say things like that out loud, and obviously this isn't hentai, so they're not going to show anything, but he doesn't really try that hard. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he says, "Oh yeah, I need to do this," and but when it comes right down to it, he's really kind of shy about it, except for a couple times here and there where he like tries to kiss her or something like that. And his friends just assumed that she was really easy because she was popular and pretty and preppy, and as far as the title goes, you don't find out until I think it's about halfway through this series why they call it this. Apparently, in the anime, a gal, quote unquote, is a preppy, pretty girl who basically talks like a valley girl, and that leads to something else that I'll get to here in just a second. But so yeah, so they start dating, and then you get Ranko, who is the tan, overly busty um, female lead's best friend, who's also she has romantic feelings for her, but they don't really say that she's like in love with her per se. But she wants to break them up because she feels like that Yukana is all hers. And it actually goes to the point where she decides that the best course of action for that is to get Junichi alone and try to bang him, and literally says things along the lines of, "You need to give that D to me right now." Like, I'm just like, whoa, like this, yeah, like it was crazy. And yeah, but then you got the most redeeming scene probably in the whole anime, Nene. Well, Nene, of course, is in love with Jinichi, being the childhood friend and all. And, of course, she's actually the most busty character in the whole show because, of course, you can't have the littlest character not be, right? Because it's anime. Uh, And so what she decides to do is she gives herself a complete makeover to make herself look more like Yukana. She dyes her hair, she gets a new hairstyle, she gets new clothes. She even starts talking like her. So she even starts talking like a Valley girl. And the redemption scene comes in. Well, real quick, Nene is also notorious for going into the Jinichi's house when he's asleep and waking him up in the mornings. Um, and basically she just says it's okay because they've known each other their whole lives, that type thing. But the redemption moment comes when one night Nene goes to Jinichi's room, climbs in bed with him naked, and literally tells him that she's ready for him to make her a woman. Like she's tired of being perceived as this little girl, even though she's the same age as him, and she wants him to make her a woman. And he rejects her. And then she starts crying and basically just says she loves him. She doesn't understand why he doesn't love her and why he won't do it. And aside from the emotion you get from her, it's the fact that like I said, this isn't hentai, so they're not going to show it, but they could imply it. They've done that a lot in a lot of different animes. But he rejects her, and he literally tells her that it wouldn't be fair for her because he doesn't feel that way about her. So instead of being this creeper that you kind of see a lot throughout the show, he has a big moment where he's really her friend and really cares about her. So, but check it out sometime. It's really funny. Some of the characters get really annoying, aside from the redemption scene, and yeah, and the whole thing actually culminates with the two characters eventually having their first kiss at the very end of the series. Kind of weird for considering it's supposed to be a show about a guy trying to lose his virginity, right? But like I said, anime. Anyway, on to number 7. Oh boy, we've really dug into the seedy underbelly of the fan service harem anime on this one, fellas. This is Monster Musume, Everyday Life with Monster Girls. Now, this one, it's like a slapstick, harem, constant innuendo, jokey type anime. I mean, it really is. I thought it was hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. And yeah, at the first half of the show, I'd say that the first 6 or 7 episodes, there's a lot of boobs, which doesn't hurt. But basically, the whole point of this show is the male lead, Kimihito. Although you rarely ever hear anybody say his name, they usually all refer to him as darling or honey or something along those lines. Gets superimposed to start taking in these girls they call them demi-humans. They're part beast of some kind. Um, and you find out that this is a world that these characters have been a part of for a long time, but the government kept them a secret, and then they decided to let them integrate into everyday life because, yeah, why not? They're beings, humanoid beings who want to live a normal life, basically. So they have regular families take in these people, to help them integrate into society. Well, Agent Smith, Miss Smith, as they always call her, she's in charge of him and the girls that he boards. And the one thing that she tells him flat out is he can't sleep with any of them or he'll go to jail, basically. And of course, every single one of them want his peen really badly, except for one. But yeah, so the whole show is just like one big giant joke about him getting into these situations that he wants to do something, kinda. Like, he's not really a creeper. Like, he has some moments, more so because he's forced to, but he tries to avoid these situations. Um, and as far as characters and monster goes, you got Mia, who's a Lamia, which is a snake person. Poppy, which is a harpy, aka a bird person. You got Centaurea, who's a centaur, half horse, half human. You got Sue, who's a slime, and Sue is like the childlike character. You got Mia, the Lamia, who's like she's the one that's like super in love with him. You got Poppy, like I said, she's the harpy character, and she's also childlike, but she's more so the dumb character. And they actually explain it the fact that she has a bird brain because she's a harpy. Um, so she like forgets everything and is really childlike. Centaurea the centaur, in this universe, centaurs are extremely about like honor and service, and when they choose somebody to be with them, like if, for example, um, a humanoid, a regular human, is not allowed to ride a centaur unless the centaur has chosen them to be their master for life, and they do it for life. It's not like a marriage per se, because when they talk about it, they show pictures and it's like males riding on top of other male centaurs, so it's not like a marriage necessarily, but when they come together for life. Um, but as far as the rest of the girl goes, you got Mero, who's a mermaid, who's obsessed with the Little Mermaid fairy tale, the actual version of the fairy tale, which is actually a tragedy where the mermaid actually doesn't get the guy and basically dies. So she's obsessed with unrequited love, and even tells the other girls that she doesn't really want to be with him, but she wants one of them to be with him, and she, on the sly, wants to do things with him, but doesn't want him to actually return her affection. Like, yeah, it's really weird. Then you got Rhaenyra, who's a spider woman who's obsessed with bondage, because of course, anime. You got Lala, who is a Dullahan. Now, from what I understand, Dullahan is like a type of like death spirit, and she even has like a scythe and everything, but for whatever reason, her head keeps coming off, and that actually is really funny. But she's like the gothy one who always talks about, like, she compares like gothy things like, oh, it burns like the fires of hell and that kind of thing. It's just really funny. And then you got Zombina. Zombina is an undead. She's literally a zombie who's like all stitched up together, which actually leads to a few moments where it's really funny that she just kind of falls apart, and then she just picks her stuff back up and stitches herself back together. You got Monaco, who's a cyclops. Uh, Tionisia, who I think they just call her Tioni. She's an ogre, so she's like a 7 foot tall, like, yeah, like a 7 foot tall ogre woman. And then you got Doppel, who's a shapeshifter who's naked all the time, but she's always wrapped in her own hair. So you don't really see her. You don't see her like naked, but she's naked. She doesn't wear clothes, and they actually tease her about it. And yeah, because she can actually make clothes appear on herself, but she always chooses not to for whatever reason. And you kind of get to notice that she really does it because it makes other people uncomfortable more so for anything else. Um, and this is another one where the main character is not your typical creeper. Like, he has a couple creepy moments here and there, but basically what it is you find out that all these girls love him because he doesn't think of them as monsters. Like, he treats them like normal human girls. Um, like, he takes them on dates, he makes them food, he talks to them, um, just like you would talk to your girlfriend or whatever, and he just treats them like normal people, and that's really what all they've ever wanted. So when they find him and he's willing to do that, they kind of can't help themselves, and they all just throw themselves at them. One scene in particular that's really funny, though, I will say, is when the moon is full, apparently it increases the girl's libido, so they all rush into his room trying to mate with him, and of course he's trying to resist because he's afraid because he doesn't want to go to jail. And one thing that was really funny is because Poppy is the young looking one, but she's the same age as everybody else. Like, they don't really see how old they are per se, but you get the idea that they're all like, everybody's like in their early to mid 20s ish probably. and she she sits on top of him and tries to undo his pants, and even says, "Hey, I know how to do this. I'm a grown up too. See?" And it's just little dialogue moments like that are especially funny in the show. Like Rhaenyra, for example, he convinces Rhaenyra to come live with him because she's kind of on the run from her. She was on the run because the family that she was with sold her to a creepo, and so he and so she said something along the lines about how he's not afraid of her and how he likes her, and he was like, "I like your legs; they're very pretty." And this talking about her spider legs. So ever since then, she's like been obsessed with them, talking about how he has like a leg fetish and all this other stuff. So, like I said, check it out. Definitely super fan service, and like I said, lots of boobs early on in the show, but it was really funny. On to number 6. Probably the most unique one on well, one of the most unique ones on this list. We have Love, Chinibio, and Other Delusions. Now, this one was a little different. I really didn't know what to expect about it based on reading it, but yeah, we'll uh, we'll go ahead and we'll just go into it as far as the reason it's so different and the reason I liked it so much. I think is because all the characters in the show are so innocent. Like there's no like real creepy moments. There's nothing's really sexual, and yeah, the whole thing is the two leads, Yuta the male lead and Rika the female lead, meet and and eventually they get together and whatnot, but they come at it as like a real life like shy school couple, like to the point where Rika's like so shy that she won't even like hold his hand most of the time. And that's what I loved about it. Like it wasn't your typical, like it's technically a harem anime because the one male character amongst all the girl characters, but unlike all these other ones, they're not all after him. Like they're all legitimately like his friend, and they're actually trying to help his and Rika's relationship because, and that's the other thing. Chinibio refers to like a child who experiences like an overactive imagination, like lives in a fantasy world. And that's what ties all these characters together is Yuta, Rika, and Dekamori, and actually Nibutani. They all, well, Nibutani and Yuta used to do it, but Rika and Dekamori never gave it up, even though they're in high school. But they live in a fantasy world and they have this rich imagination about it. That they have powers, and Rika always wears an eye patch over her one eye because she says it's the eye of the wicked lord that gives her power. And Dekamori has these like really long braids that she tries to wield as weapons, which is really funny because most of the time she either hits herself in the face with them or wraps herself up in her own hair. And yeah, and the other thing about this show that was really cool was there's a lot of actual fight scenes in it, which really surprised me. But there's quite a few fight scenes in it, but technically they're fake fight scenes because what we're seeing are the characters' imagination, and they animated it into an amazing. Like the fight scenes are very well animated, very well choreographed, but they're all fake. They're all the imagination of the characters, which I thought was really cool. Um, and yeah, so and the other thing about this show that was interesting was Toko, who is Rika's big sister. She's a chef, by the way. She's been trying to snap her sister out of this phase for a long time and just can't seem to do it. So when Rika became friends with Yuta, Nibatani, Kuman, and Yuta's little sister, she thought that having friends would help her get out of this whole situation that she's in. But of course it doesn't. Rika doesn't want to let go. And the couple shining moments, for me at least in the series, were you find out the reason Rika retreated into this imaginary world was because their father died. And the only way she can deal with it is by thinking that there's a way to find him and see him again. Um, which comes up later because the other shining moment in the show for me was Rika goes to live with her grandparents, and her grandparents are very traditional. So her grandfather hates the fact that she acts the way she does, and doesn't really like Yuta at all. For whatever, there's no real reason why. It's just he just doesn't. But so she kind of gives up on what she kind of gives up on the whole thing. But Yuta realized how much he really cared for her, and how much he really cared for her the way she was. So he goes to chase after her, and basically they realize that they would rather live in a world of their own making together than be apart in reality. So yeah, and that leads to Yuta getting Rika to confront the fact that her father is gone. And there's actually a very touching moment where she imagines being able to speak to him and tell him goodbye and so forth. And yeah, I mean it's really effective. So give this thing a try. If you want an anime that's literally about innocence, imagination, a rich fantasy life that overlaps into reality, but both in a good and bad way from like a real perspective. Like there's real reasons why they shouldn't do this and real reasons why they do it. Give it a try. It's pretty good. Let's move on to number 5, shall we? Number 5, Infinite Dendogram. Now this one is not like pretty much any other one on the list except for one, which we'll get to. Infinite Dendogram is an Isaac-y, I think that's how you pronounce it, Isaac-y anime about real people in video games. But unlike most Isaac-y animes, the characters aren't actually stuck in the game. They just spend a lot of time in there. And for example, an example of an Isaac anime, the one, at least in my experience, the one that really brought that style to America and made it popular was Sword Art Online. But this one, it actually just came out last year, and I actually started watching it because I was trying to find a cartoon to watch with my 3-year-old son that wasn't the normal crap cartoons that we had been watching at the time. So I turned it on. He kind of liked it. It has a lot of action. Um, there's no like real sexual. There's nothing like sexual in it, and or anything like that. You know, it's actually very kid friendly, and that was one of the reasons. I think one of the reasons why I liked it was because it's not, you know, your typical creepy game etchy is Isaac-y anime. And but basically what it is the main character, Ray Starling, is in a game called Infinite Dendogram. And an Infinite Dendogram is a like a VR like you feel like you're there, like you really do feel like you're there. And the whole idea being that pretty much anything's possible in this game. And then he has Nemesis, who is what they call an embryo, which I guess that lots of characters have these in the game. And they're weapons and companions and all sorts of things. So, and like for example, in this picture, the one that looks like a maid, that's Nemesis, and she can turn into his weapon, and she can be like upgraded like weapons can in games and so forth. And then the AI is Cheshire, who looks like a cat, who talks to him. And then you find out that he meets up with his brother, Shu Starling, and basically you find out later on that Shu is quite literally the most powerful character in the entire game. Like he is beyond strong. Like he's the OP character of the game. And yeah, and this whole thing is just about them going on adventures and for the guilds, and you know, and earning money, and you know, doing things like that. You know, they go to restaurants and eat, and it was just, I don't know, there's something about it really stuck with me, as far as it was just good. And yeah, just give it a shot if you ever just want to watch a tongue-in-cheek adventure anime that doesn't have like excess creepiness or anything like that to it. Let's say we move on to number 4. Ah, yes. Number 4. Hensookie. Are you willing to fall in love with a pervert as long as she's a cutie? Now, for me, I would say the answer is probably yes. Um, so yeah, but anyway, this one we are diving back into the more fan service, somewhat creepy side of the harem anime, and this one is you got Keiki, who is the male lead, who for the most part is your typical high schooler. He hasn't had a girlfriend yet, wants to have a girlfriend. His best friend Shoma has had lots of girlfriends, but never stays in a single relationship for very long. And the reason I watched it was because the description compared the story to Cinderella, but with panties. And yes, I did say panties. So the whole idea being is he's part of the calligraphy club. Him and the other girls are, except for one girl. She's, which one was it? Oh, Ayano. Ayano is not part of the calligraphy club, and neither is Koharu. But Koharu is not actually after the main character. But yeah, and so one day he's helping clean up, and he goes back in the room after like dumping like the mop bucket water or something, just normal like that, and he finds a letter with a pair of girls' panties sitting next to it, and basically the letter is someone telling Keiki that they love him and that they're his secret admirer. So he's excited because he hasn't had a girl do this for him. Like he's never seemed like he's had a girl interested in him before. And so him and his best friend Shoma try to figure out who it is, and by calling her Undirella, because it's supposed to be Cinderella but with panties, they they even talk about that. They're like, I can't. He even says, he's like, it's not like I can just have all the girls in school just try them on. Like that's weird. Like he even says, he's like, that's weird. I can't do that. And so it's him and his friend trying to figure out which of the girls in the club is this girl that's in love with him. And the reason the show is called what it is because they all have some kind of weird fetish. And yeah, so you got Sayuki, who is actually a year ahead of him, who literally wants Keiki to be her master and treat her like a dog, like literally like a dog. Like she wants to wear a leash, she wants him to pat his head, or wants him to pat her head, all kinds of things, scold her when she's bad. Like yeah, like she wants him to treat her like a dog. And then you got Yuka, who's actually a year younger than him, who wants to be like a master. She wants to be his dominatrix. And yeah, like for example, they actually go on a date, and after the date she takes him up somewhere where they're alone, and she literally just takes her underwear off and hands it and gives it to him as a present because he was a good boy, so that's his reward. And he flips out, falls over, and then she stuffs them in his mouth. And one of the reasons the show was so funny was because the little one-liner dialogues. Like for example, when something bad happens, the lead character goes balls, like, and so he literally does that. He goes balls. He's like, I can't believe I'm gonna die this way, and then he just passes out. And it's like little stuff like that, like if you pay attention, you hear little dialogue in the background. Like there's a part where Yuka and Sayuki are arguing, and you hear him in the background saying little things, and a lot of times the background jokes are funnier than the foreground jokes. And of course they hate each other because they're both after him, and Yuka always makes fun of the fact that she has giant boobs, as Sayuki has giant boobs, and of course Sayuki always makes fun of the fact that Yuka has like no boobs, and it's just back and forth with them too. Then you have Mao, who is actually she's another best friend to Keiki, and she's not really interested in him romantically per se. Like she likes him, but not in the same sense as like wanting to be with him. It's more so, like I said on here, that she's the boy love girl. Like she literally fantasizes about him and Shoma like dating and weird stuff like that. Like that's her thing. And then you got Kuharu, who she's stalking Shoma. She really likes Shoma, and she literally stalks him, takes pictures of him, has like a million pictures of him up in like this class. She's part of the astronomy club, and she literally has pictures of him like all over the walls and stuff like that. And he even talks about how creepy that is, that that she has all these pictures of him, and she's never said a word to him because she's too afraid. And then you got Ayano, who she refers to herself as an olfactophile. Basically, she likes body odor smells, and she's constantly asking him to like take off his boxers and stuff, and let her have them so she can like smell them and things like that. Like, it's really weird. And because the anime had to take a turn this way, we get to Mizuha, who is Keiki's sister, who is roughly the same age as Keiki. And spoilers ahead, she is Undrella. That's right. His sister is romantically in love with him. But, thank God, they explain the fact that they're not actually related. And somehow he forgot this. They don't explain how he forgot or why he forgot. He just literally forgot the fact that his sister, who's basically the same age as him, is not related to him. And you would think, but by doing the math, he would know that, but he didn't. And so she gets adopted by him, or by his parents, and he immediately like takes to her and treats her like a sister, and and loves her and that kind of thing. So she literally falls in love with him for it. And at the end of the anime, she explains to him that she understands that they've lived their life together as brother and sister, but there's nothing wrong with the fact that she's in love with him because they're not related. But it still feels kind of wrong, doesn't it? It's a little weird. But check it out sometime. It's actually really, really funny. Let's move on to number 3. Number 3, How Not to Summon a Demon Lord. Now, this is a perfect example of a real Izaki anime. Diablo, the main character, I can't remember his real world name, but he gets stuck in this game. It's similar to a game that he was playing, but the world's a little bit different. But he's a quote unquote a demon lord from another world, and his character's like super OP, and like to the point where like nobody comes close to like beating him. He just wipes the floor with everybody he comes across. And he's summoned by Shira, who is just an elf with giant boobs, who's like the stupid bubbly one, and Rem, who's like a cat girl, who's like the sarcastic dry humor one. And because Diablo has an artifact that reflects magic back at whoever sent it at him, their slave spell enslaves them to him instead of the other way around. So the whole point being is he's stuck there with them, and he doesn't know what to do, so he just starts going on quests and helping them out, and eventually they actually become friends. And this is another one where at the beginning of the show there was a lot more of like boobs, fan service, that kind of thing, and then they kind of take it out a little bit. Like, for the most part, you don't see nearly as much boobs and stuff later on, but certain things like still happen as far as that part goes. And then you also, as far as the other characters go, you also have Alicia, who's a knight who literally hates humanity, like as a general whole, like as a whole hates humanity, and wants to resurrect a different demon lord to literally destroy the mortal races. Like, she hates everybody, and to the point where she actually betrays all of them to try to make this happen. Like, it's pretty insane. Like, she's a very like you look at her like when they first introduce her, and she's very just like creep evil. Like, yeah, you just get this evil creep vibe from her. Then you have Sylvie, who is a rabbit girl who's the guild master of the Adventurers Guild in the city that they're in. And she really doesn't do a whole lot except for help them like go to quests and gives them information and that kind of thing. Edelgard, who becomes more of a main character in the second season, is what they call a fallen, basically the bad guys. But she's a real strong fallen, but of course she's no match for Diablo. But after he defeats her in battle, she kind of retreats. She comes back later, and then eventually they actually become friends. Um, you have Celestine, who's more. She's a main character, but she's not forefront very often. She's the high priestess of the city that they're in, who helps protect it. Um, and then we move on to Clem. Now, Clem is the child character in the show, who is an actual demon lord in the world that they are currently living. And she's beyond powerful, but she's this little girl, and she acts like a little girl a lot of times, but she's super OP. Like, she literally talks about, and Diablo knows, she'll, when people anger her, she even says things like, I can literally just wipe you off the face of this planet. And of course Diablo always talks her down, and then you have Emil, who is, he's the handsome knight who is the quote unquote protector of all women, but of course he's super goofy and does weird poses, and he's actually not that powerful, but he does have one shining moment where he's trying to protect these people from a fallen who infiltrated the city, and he takes a lot of damage, and he refuses to give up because he literally says that he's trying to protect the girls, he's trying to protect Shara and Rem from this creature, and he's willing to give his life for it, which is actually a pretty shining moment for the show to have a character like that. Now, in the second season, you're introduced to Lumakina, who is the head priestess of the church, who is saved by Diablo, so she believes that Diablo is actual God because of how powerful he is, which of course leads to all kinds of mishaps and, also in the second season, you're introduced to Rose, who, in this world, like I said, some of the things are the same as the game he was playing in the real world. So, like, for example, the dungeon that he created in the game that his character was head of is in this world. And they go there, and you're introduced to Rose, which in the picture is the maid-looking character. And Rose is an automaton who, they don't outright say it, but basically you get the feeling that Diablo and her character in the game were romantically involved, and so, but she's the guardian of his treasure room. And when you introduce to her, it's actually pretty touching because she literally cries at the fact that quote unquote her master is back to see her again, and how long she's been waiting to see him again, and he even makes a few comments that's like, oh wow, yeah, I forgot that me and Rose. So yeah, pretty interesting character. And then you have Horn, who is a younger girl, rabbit girl, who basically helps them out in the dungeons, and she's just another adventurer that goes along with them and becomes friends with them, basically. And there's a lot of funny, as far as the comedy in this show goes. Once again, it's yet another harem anime, but there's a lot of comedy in it, and the fact that they keep putting Diablo in these like sexual situations that he has no experience in, so it makes him really uncomfortable, and he doesn't know what to do, and he always finds a way to avoid it, and it's just a really funny show for the most part. And then the battle scenes are all really well done, really well choreographed, great animation, and the fact that Diablo is such an OP character just makes it cool. Like, he has all these crazy spells and abilities, and it's just awesome. So we're almost done, folks. Let's go ahead and get into number two. Hopefully you're still with me. Number two, we have Video Girl I. Based on the manga that's just called Video Girl in Japan, it was a 7-episode OVA that came its way to the States in the 90s. Now, I heard about this anime from my personal favorite anime reviewer, Ben the Sage. If you don't know who that is, check out his page, Ben the Sage. Um, I watched his review of it, and it really got me interested in it. So I actually bought it and watched it, and I was really surprised by how good it was. It was basically, it's a drama show. It's not a fan servicey. I mean, there's some fan service moments in it. Don't get me wrong. It is the early '90s of anime here, but for the most part, it's like a drama about these characters. These, for the most part, just the three characters. You have Yota, who's the male main character, and it's funny because his name, it's a joke about him being, because he doesn't have a girlfriend, and his name means dateless, so they always call him Dateless Yota. And then you have Ai, who is the video girl. You have Moemi, who Yota is in love with, but she is in love with Takashi. Now Takashi knows that Yota has feelings for Moemi, so he doesn't try to step on his toes. He doesn't want to make his friend upset, so he doesn't reciprocate Moemi's feelings for him. And that's really what the whole anime is about these characters coming together. And what it happens is Yota being after hearing that Moemi loves Takashi, like he doesn't confess to her yet, but after hearing that she loves Takashi, he gets really lonely. So he rents a video girl, which for all those who don't know, a video girl is literally what it sounds like. It's you rent a videotape and it's a girl on screen talking to you as like if you guys are on a date and that kind of thing. So he rents one and something happens. Something happens with the VCR that brings Ai to life. So she literally comes to life. And it just goes from there. For the most part, she tries to help him out in finding other girls whilst the whole time developing her own feelings for Yota. So, yeah, she broke the one rule that video girls have, which is don't fall in love. So, of course, she does. Which, spoilers ahead, leads to one of the best endings I've ever seen in an anime like this, which is Ai is whisked away by this godlike deity, and Yota goes after her, and he has to climb the staircase made of glass or crystal. I'm assuming it's glass. And all the while he's going up the staircase, and he keeps getting cut more and more. It's actually one of the bloodiest scenes that I've seen in a long time in an anime, and which is funny because it comes from this kind of anime, a heart-wrenching drama. And basically what it amounts to is the god deity basically at one point even asked him, is she really worth all this suffering, all this pain? And he says, yeah, that he loves her, that she's worth it. And it just kind of ends. And then it ends with you seeing the characters, Moemi and Takashi are together, and Ai and Yota are together as like couples. But you see it on a TV screen. So it's kind of up for interpretation whether it happened for real or if it didn't. I definitely recommend watching it. It's 100% worth your time. And now, last but not least, the number one anime, and for my money, the number one anime that really did surprise me the most by how good it was. Are you ready for this one? Overlord. That's right, folks. Overlord. If you have not watched this, I cannot recommend this show enough. Absolutely amazing. Love it. It's another Isaac-y anime, and there is a lot of ecchi stuff in it. Like not a lot, but there's several like sexual innuendo things going on in it. And it's kind of weird that this kind of anime is also technically a harem anime because the main character, Ainzul Gon, who is the skeleton man on the screen here, he is a super OP sorcerer, like beyond powerful. And like to the point where he's literally probably the most powerful person in this world, period. Like, yeah, crazy powerful. But he's the leader of this particular group of people who he used to, in his real life, like I said, it's an Isaac anime, so he gets stuck in this game called, he was playing a game called Yggdrasil, which is an MMORPG, and he gets stuck in a world that's very similar, but it's also a little different from Yggdrasil. So it's him trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, how to go about doing things, that kind of thing, like what to use for money, certain things like that. And he was the leader of the guild in the game. So when he gets stuck in this world, all these characters look to him as the leader, and it's not a harem in the sense that they all like have romantic feelings for him, but it's one character being surrounded by a group of other characters that they all legitimately love him, but not like romantically. There's only a couple characters that actually are interested in him romantically, and that's Albedo, who's a succubus, who's the leader of the rest of these characters, that what they call the Floor Guardians, and then you have Shoutir Bloodfallen, who's a fellow Floor Guardian who also happens to be a vampire, and of course they go back and forth as far as like, oh, who's Lord Ain's gonna choose, and Albedo can't wait to marry him, and all this other stuff is really, really, and that part's really funny. But for the most part, the draw of this is just it's just so well written, so well animated. The fight scenes are absolutely spectacular, and a lot of and of course the magic scenes are amazing because of the fact that he is just beyond powerful. And actually, for my money, my favorite scene in the entire thing is this group of thieves break into his home to steal things, and he goes to fight them one on one. And the one character can detect magic, like she has the ability to do that, like that's her special ability. And at first, she can't detect anything. Well, it's because he wears a special ring that keeps detection magic off of him. Well, when he takes it, he takes it off. He says, "Here, try that again." And as soon as she looks at him, she vomits everywhere because she is completely overblown by how powerful his magic aura was. Like she literally just bleh, everywhere. Like it's crazy, and I can't get enough of that. I thought that was hilarious. But as far as things go, you have, like I said, Albedo's the succubus, and the reason she's actually in love with him is because all these other characters were created by other players. Well, Albedo originally was created to be a bitch to other people. Well, since the game he was playing was about to be shut down before he got stuck in it, he decided to mess with it, and he rewrote her personality to be in love with him. And it's funny because he even acts like a nerdy otaku character, and he even says, he's like, "Oh my god, I'm such a dork, I can't believe I did that, blah blah blah." And then you have so Albedo spends all this time trying to get with him and marry him and so forth. And then you have Demiurge, who's a powerful demon, also a great tactician on his side. Like I said, Shoutir Bloodfallen is a vampire who also is in love with him romantically and, of course, wants to be with him. You have Cocytus. Now, on here I put an ice crustacean because that's literally what he is. He looks like some type of lobster or something like that, but he's like icy and he has ice powers. But he's like the warrior. Like he's, as far as tactics go, as far as actual battles go, like he's the best. And then you have Ari and Mari Bellafiora, who are twin elves who are trans, and they actually make it. And the thing I like about this is they weren't just put in there for quote unquote wokeness. They actually make a point to mention the fact that, oh, our creator made us trans, whatever that means. Like they don't understand the fact that they're trans because because the guy who created them just wanted trans characters, and they don't even know what that means. So you have a boy who's dressed like a girl and a girl who's dressed like a boy, and basically they reason it out to maybe dressing like this makes our abilities better. Like they don't get it, and the best part is they don't dwell on it. Like they mention it, it's kind of funny, and it's not mentioned again, which is fine. And then the only other, since this show is so vast, like 3 seasons, 39 episodes, so many characters that I could spend time on. I cited the only other character I'm going to mention here is Sebas, who is, like it says on here, Lord Ainzulgon's butler. So he's the head of what they call the battle maids, and like I said, the head butler who personally attends to Ainzulgon. And at one point they make a not a gesture, but he makes a point to say that basically the only people that are more powerful than him are the creators of this guild that they all live in, and they're all gone except for Lord Ainz. So I think we're going to see more of how powerful Sebas really is, and I can't wait because what you do see is awesome. So like I said, I cannot stress enough, watch this show. Which actually brings me to the closing part of our video here. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. It feels good to put out more videos again because this, like I said, when I was doing this before, this is something I just wanted to do for fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys got some ideas for animes that you want to check out. And on my next episode, I decided I want to do a full-on episode on Overlord because of how good the show is. I can go into so much more depth on the characters and so forth. And a show like this really deserves it. It really deserves to be going into more depth. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully within the next week or so, I'll try to get it out there for you. So once again, thank you. I hope you all stayed with me through this long video. It's the longest one I've done so far. And I will see you guys same nerd time, same nerd channel. Everybody, have a good evening.